Hi, welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David and this is my ally Ruud.
Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about all the green cards in the Battle for Zendikar set. This guide will help you to evaluate all the cards for the limited format, so draft and sealed. So your pre-release is also a sealed event. To evaluate all the cards, we divide all the cards by color and into 3 tiers. The first tier will be the cards we really want to play, the really big bombs. The second tier will be all the cards which are really good, so if you have a lot of them you will try to be in that color. And the third tier are just, if you're in that color, they're pretty nice cards to fill up your deck mana curve wise.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at the comments.
Our first common card is Blister Pot. For 1 green we get a 1/1 little Eldrazi drone with the Void. And it states that when this guy dies you get to put down a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield, which you can sacrifice for a colorless mana. I think this is tier 3. I don't usually like to play 1/1s for 1 unless they have a really good ability. This one replaces itself, and also when it blocks and it dies you still get a 1/1 guy which you can also use to ramp you. So it actually, yeah, it's pretty playable.
Single use ramp, of course, but that's a lot in this set, and you really want that to play some Eldrazi, especially in green. It is there quite a lot, which we will see later on. So tier 3 for me too. Yeah. Let's look at the next card, Earthen Arms. It's a sorcery for 2 mana, put 2+1/+1 counters on target permanent, and you can awaken 4 for 7 mana. Well, that's of course too much. Putting 2+1/+1 counters on a permanent, it could be a land, it's just not that strong. It's okay, but it's sorcery speed, so I would say put it aside. It's just not something you want to use. It's no combat trick, it's just not enough.
It's kind of like an enchantment that gives a creature +2/+2, and if they destroy that creature, the counters are also gone. You might say, oh, but I can pay 7 mana to turn one of my lands into a 6/6. You know what?
Yeah, 6, yeah.
You turn one land into a 6/6, and then you're like, okay, so you're paying 7 mana for a simple 6/6, which also costs you one of your lands. Because, of course, obviously it may be a land and a creature at the same time, but you can't use them both for both things at the same turn. So I would say, yeah, definitely leave this card aside. It's no good.
Then we have Oran Reef Invoker. It's a creature for 2 mana, it's a 2/2, so it's a bear. And for 8 mana, that's of course kind of steep, you can give it +5/+5 and trample until end of turn. It's usable, it's a bear. I would say tier 3. The 8 mana is of course too steep, but well, when you're top decking, you could use it as a insane mana sink.
Yeah, I think tier 3 is pretty good. I like it, good to fill out, and I can see scenarios where it becomes really big, and the fact that it also gets trample is pretty relevant, I think. Next card is Plummet. For 2 mana we get an instant destroy target creature with flying. Normally, I think Plummet is actually a pretty good card. However, when you look at how many flyers there are in the set, there's not that many, so this card becomes very conditional. It's great removal, but it's extremely conditional, and the chance that your opponent has a flyer, which is also a threat, at the right time, I think it's too much of a risk. I would put this card aside.
I think so too in this sense. You can't kill the really big stuff, you can't kill the Eldrazi, which is a downside to all the removal cards if they can do that. Of course, if there's a 4/4 flyer, which is biggest in the set actually, it will be very nice of course, but if there's a 2/2, yeah, it will be annoying, especially considering green doesn't have flyers and just 1 reacher. But I think I would put it aside. Maybe I would put it into tier 3 if I didn't have enough removal, but
maybe as a sideboard card. If you know your opponent has it in your second game, you can sideboard it in.
Yeah, true.
Then we have Seek the Wilds. For 2 mana we get a sorcery. It allows us to look at the top 4 cards of your library, then reveal a creature or a land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. I think this is tier 3. I think it's a good filler for 2 mana. It allows you to search for that land that you require. It allows you to search for that really good creature that you require. After all, in the limited environment, not all your cards are going to be great, and this one allows you to go through the cards you don't need and put into your hand the card that you do need. Yeah, filler.
It's playable. I don't know about it. I could put it aside, but I think I'll also put it into tier 3. Well, it can come in very handy, but it just draws you an additional card. It costs you some mana and it replaces itself with something you will need most of the time, because you look at 4 cards. So it's okay. Then we have the next card, Snapping Gnarlid. For 2 mana, it's a 2/2 creature with landfall, and if a land enters, it gets +2, well, +1/+1. So it's not a lot. I would put it into tier 3. It's just not big enough. It's 2/2. It's okay. It's a bear.
Yeah.
It can be a 3/3 on turn 3.
Yeah, it's
okay.
okay. It's an okay filler.
It's okay.
If you get the bonus, then you got the bonus, but it's playable without it. Then we have a Swell of Growth for 2 mana. We get an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until the end of turn, and you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this allows you to ramp if you have a land into your hand, which you'll probably have early on in the game. Plus, also it's a combat trick. This is actually really nice for 2 mana at instant speed. I would say tier 2.
Yeah, if you really want to ramp, you can just use it for that. It's possible. And if you just need a combat trick, you don't have land in your hand, you can still use it to get +2/+2. Yeah. So it won't ever be dead in your hand, I think. So it's okay. Tier 2, I think it's nice. Yeah.
A couple
Put
of
it in
these.
a land. It's very relevant. Yeah. Then we have next card, Call the Scions. For 3 mana, it's a sorcery with Devoid. And you can put 2 Eldrazi Scion creatures into play.
For 3 mana.
For 3 mana, yes. That's just simple. It's single use ramp. You really want some ramp in the green on the green cards. And this is nice. I'll put it into tier 2 because ramp is just so important for the Eldrazi to play. You can just use it so easily with the bigger threats, the bigger bombs you really need.
Yeah, it's actually, as we discussed already earlier, it does 2 things. You can either go wide with a lot of little guys, or you can go tall by pumping all your mana and sacrificing all these guys to cast an extremely large creature. So it gives you so much versatility. 2 of those just for 3 mana. I really like it, and also tier 2. Then we have the next card, Lifespring Druid. For 3 mana we get a 2/1, and we get to tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is a mana dork, which is a little bit more expensive, but it allows it gives us some mana ramp, it gives us some mana fixing, plus it also has 2 power. I think it's actually really good. If I see a couple of these, it really pushes me into green as well. I'm going to say tier 2.
Yeah, it's just ramp, and it's not single use. You can just use it every turn. If you have a few of these, it's pretty reliable to just use 3 colors. Green is your main color, and then 2 other colors. It's really doable, so you can even use Converge a little bit if you want. So this is really nice.
Yeah.
Then the next card, Natural Connection. For 3 mana as an instant, you can search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. Okay, it's 3 mana. It might seem like a lot, but you really like the ramp. I really like it in the sense, we said it before. So I would say tier 2.
Yeah, what I also really like about this card is that it's instant speed, which means that you can hold your mana open, maybe for a combat trick. If it doesn't happen, you can always cast it at the end of your opponent's turn to get the ramp anyway. Also, you can use, there's some cards that have landfall, which gain a benefit during combat. If you use this spell, you can instant speed, look for a land, put that land to the battlefield. The landfall triggers during combat, and you will be able to pump your creature when people didn't expect a land to come into the battlefield. So that could be a fun level trick. Next card is Chijuro Steward. For 3 mana, we get a 0/1 Elf Scout ally, might be relevant, the creature type, with Converge. This guy enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each color of mana used to spend it. So if you're playing mono green, which you probably won't be, it would come in as a 1/2. If you're playing 2 colors, more likely it'll come in as a 2/3. So let's say a 2/3 for 3 is acceptable, playable as a filler, so I would say tier 3.
Yeah, I would say tier 3 too. Of course, well, like we said before, it is actually possible with all the land draw, land search, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool on common level, on the common rarity. It's actually quite possible to play 3 colors. So if you could make it reliably into a 3/4, it would be pretty powerful, of course. I don't know if you can. If you feel like you can, it's actually maybe even better than tier 3. If it will be tier 2, I don't know. It will only be 3/2, easily to block, but still, it will be pretty powerful. So it's a nice card, tier 3.
And also the point you have to remember is that at 3 mana, it's actually competing with a lot of other very good cards in green as well. And not to mention the other color you might be playing when you're drafting or in sealed. Then we go to Unnatural Aggression. For 3 mana, we get an instant. It's a colorless instant because it has Devoid. And target creature you control fights target creature an opponent controls. If the creature your opponent controls would die, exile it instead. Actually, I think this is pretty good removal. Green has a lot of big creatures. It has powerful creatures. Remember, it doesn't have to win the combat. It can just trade, and then it'll still exile the card on top of that. And it's instant speed for 3 mana. but also conditional because you do need to have a creature. You need to have a big enough creature for it to kill another creature of your opponent. So that's why it doesn't go very high. I would say tier 3.
Yeah, I would also say tier 3. You do need the biggest creature, and in this set, green really doesn't have the biggest creatures out there. It does have some landfall creatures which could be quite big, but I feel like green is really focusing on the mana ramp and your color fixing. So it doesn't really have the biggest creatures, I don't know, so I would put it into tier 3 because it's still removal, it's instant speed, so it's okay, but it's not tier 2 this time.
No, that's true.
Then we have Blood Hunter Worm. For 4 mana it's a 4/3. Nothing else, just simple, plain a worm. It's pretty okay. 4 attack power is pretty great, so tier 3. It's not special, but it's okay.
Yeah, I can't say anything more about it. It's a filler card. If you don't have anything decent in your 4-drop, this one will do the trick. Then we have Eyeless Watcher. For 4 mana, we get a 1/1 guy with the Void. And when he enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 Eldrazi Scion tokens onto the battlefield, which of course you can sacrifice for colorless mana. So basically you get 3 1/1s, 2 of which are ramp for 4 mana. It's good, it's a filler, but it's not great. So again, tier 3.
I think it's quite okay because it just gives you a lot of versatility. Of course, like you said, you can go wide, you can go big if you want to use the ramp, of course. So I think it's pretty good. Definitely tier 3.
Yeah. Then we have Giant Mantis. For 4 mana, we get a 2/4 with Reach. Now this is basically a giant spider, as they call it, because it has 2 power, 4 toughness, and it has Reach. What makes it so amazing in this set is that it's the only Reacher available, and green already doesn't have any flyers, which means that this card has to be picked extremely high, and even for other colors, Reach is very powerful. Tier 2.
Tier 2 for me too, especially because there aren't a lot of flyers which have 4 power, so it can stop most flyers.
Correct.
Then we have Reclaiming Vines. For 4 mana, it's a sorcery, destroy target artifact, enchantment or land. So it's very versatile, it's sorcery speed, costs a lot, you can't destroy a creature. I don't really like destroying lands, but still it's very versatile. It will be tier 3.
Yeah, I would also say tier 3, good filler, to always have a target because you can always hit a land of opponents. I don't think there's going to be a lot of artifacts that you're going to want to hit, and I also don't think there's going to be a lot of enchantments, so you're going to use it pretty much the same as you would the red version of this, which only can hit a land. Then we have Territorial Baloth. For 5 mana, we get a 4/4 with Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2 to the end of turn. This is one of those examples we talked about, that when a land enters the battlefield during combat, if you can get that done, it would be a pretty nice trick, because then it's a 6/6. But just by itself, being a 4/4 for 5 is really, really big. I say that pushes it already just by itself into tier 2.
Yeah, tier 2, I think so too. Really powerful, a lot of attack power. You can also use this with the fight ability discard before the Eldrazi hit the battlefield. So it's nice, tier 2.
Yeah.
Then we have Tajuru Beastmaster. For 6 mana, you get a 5/5 ally, which is actually pretty big. It's in green, of course. And it has Rally. When an ally enters the battlefield under your control, all your creatures get +1/+1. So this one will also be a 6/6 when he enters or when another ally enters.
Yeah.
Tier 2.
Tier 2, definitely. 5 power, 5 toughness. There's not a lot that can tangle with it in the early game, except for the biggest of the Eldrazi, so it will most likely be one of the biggest things on the battlefield. And its ability is quite useful if you're also going for a lot of 1/1 Eldrazi Scion tokens. So not too bad. Well, those are the commons. Let's have a look at the uncommons. Our first uncommon card is Jadi Offshoot. For 1 green, we get a 0/3 defender with landfall, and whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to gain 1 life. This card is bad. It is the definition of bad. It is a 0 power creature that even when it gets pumped by other stuff, it still is defender, so it can't attack. The fact that you gain only 1 life when a land comes in is super negligible. This card won't impact the board state, it won't stop you from attacking you. It is just that bad. Ruth?
I think so too. Put it aside. Next card, Side Leopard. For 1 mana, we get a 1/1 with landfall. When a land enters, it gets +1/+1. I think it's not good enough. I would put it aside. A 1/1 for 1 is usually not good enough. It could be on the offense at 2/2, still not really impressive. So just put it aside.
Yeah, don't think about it. It's really bad. Then we have Rot Shambler. For 2 mana, we get a 1/1, and whenever another creature you control dies, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. I think the effect is not powerful enough. It dies easily to removal. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to have your things die so that this guy gets bigger, so you're not putting yourself in a very attractive situation to win the game. And sure, in a utopian world, it's very powerful, but what are the odds of that happening? You need a lot of other cards as well for it to be good. I say put it aside.
Yeah, I think so. Then the next card, Sylvan Scrying. For 2 mana, it's a sorcery. You can search your library for a land card and put it into your hand. It's a land card, so you can also search for a non-basic land card. So in constructed, this could be pretty powerful in some decks. But in this sealed events, it's just not that powerful. It just replaces itself with a land card. I think I would even put it aside. It does have some mana fixing, but it's just not good enough in these type of decks.
Yeah, I would say put it aside in any regular draft or sealed. If you are playing 3 colors, then I would put it in tier 3 because it does help you in that case. Next card is Retreat to Kazandu. For 3 mana, we get an enchantment. It states that whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, it's landfall. Choose 1, I would put a +1/+1 on counter on target creature or gain 2 life. Well, 2 life, that's not really going to do very much either. Putting the +1/+1 counter can be nice, doable. I would only really use it to fill out my curve, so I would say tier 3.
Yeah, late game it doesn't do anything, of course, if you draw it late game. Then we have Void Attendant. For 3 mana, it's a 2/3 creature. It's a processor with devoid, so it's colorless. And for 2 mana, you can put a card from your opponent, which he controls, in exile. You can put it into a graveyard, and you will get a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature token. Pretty nice, of course, single-use ramp, but only if you are using some exile-based stuff in the deck. Ingest, of course, but green doesn't have that a lot, so you should have another color, maybe blue, maybe black, something like that. But I think it will be tier 2 because it's already a 2/3 body and has a pretty relevant ability.
Yeah, exactly. Just on its own, it is acceptable. But if you're also playing, so it's tier 3 if you have no ingest, and then it becomes tier 2 very quickly if you have the ingest cards to support it. Then we go to Infuse with the Elements. For 4 mana, we have an instant with Converge, and you can put X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is the number of colors of mana used to cast this spell. And then it also gains Trample on top of that. So for 4 mana, you're probably playing 2 colors, so then you're getting 2 +1/+1 counters and Trample for a creature. As a combat trick, it's not very impressive. As a way to pump your creatures permanently, it's also not very impressive. It only starts becoming good when you're playing 4 colors, because after all, you also get the +1/+1 counters, and people can remove that creature, and then you lost all the effects. I'm not impressed. I would put it aside.
I would also put it aside. It is an instant though, so it could be a combat trick, but I think I'm just not impressed with it.
No.
Then we have Murasa Ranger. For 4 mana, we get a 3/3 creature with landfall. When a land enters, you can pay 4 mana, and if you do, you can put 2 +1/+1 counters on this baby. So it will become a 5/5, which is actually pretty relevant, I think. So I'll put it into tier 2. It can become pretty powerful all by itself. You don't have to use any other cards, only lands.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be able to do that on the next turn, if you have a land, that is, because you're already going to have, you had 4 mana to cast this guy, so you're going to have the 4 mana to get the +2/+2 counters, and having it be a 5/5 attacking on turn 5 is actually really strong.
Really strong.
Yeah, so tier 2 for me as well. The next one is Tajura Warcaller. For 5 mana, we have a 2/1 ally, and when this guy or another ally enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +2/+2 till the end of turn. It seems really powerful on the offense in a utopian world. If you only have 1 or 2 creatures, it is 4 power. Let's say if you got 2 creatures already on the battlefield, but I don't know if I would be willing to pay 5 mana for it. Sure, if you've got multiple allies, you're playing green and white, then it starts becoming much more attractive. Being able to trigger this every turn, then we're really talking. By itself, doesn't really make the cut. I would say tier 3.
Yeah, tier 3. It's usable. It's a 2/1. It's very low for 5 mana, of course. So it's usable, but only if you play allies. Then we have Broad Monitor. For 6 mana, it's a 3/3 creature with devoid. When it enters, you can put 3 Eldrazi Scion creature tokens onto the battlefield. So this means if you don't hit your 7th land drop, you will have 9 mana at your disposal on turn 7. So that's actually very, very strong for the insane big Eldrazi creatures you will be pulling from the packs on a common rarity even. So I put into tier 2.
Yeah, if I see a couple of these kind of cards, then I'm definitely going to be pulled into green, because it's a relevant body and it's giving you the ramp they require. Really, really nice. Then we go to the last one, that is Plated Crusher. For 7 mana, we get a 7/6 with trample and a hexproof. Immediately tier 1. This is an uncommon bomb that is impossible for your opponents to get rid of because of the hexproof. And it's going to be impossible for them to chump block with their tiny little Eldrazi. It is a nightmare, and it even trades with some of the biggest Eldrazi on the battlefield. I think this is definitely first pickable, this card.
I think this is actually the only non-Eldrazi card that will trade with an Eldrazi all by itself without pumping it with special stuff.
Yeah, it is really cool. Alright, those are the uncommons. Let's have a look at the rares. Our first rare is Beastcaller Savant. For 2 mana, we get a 1/1 with haste, which can tap to give us mana of any color. We can only use it to cast creature spells, but that doesn't really matter a lot to us, considering that you're going to be playing a lot of creatures. It is good. It's really good, don't get us wrong, but it's not enough that we automatically want to play green when we draw it, so I would say tier 2.
It's very nice ramp, of course, early game ramp. Then we have From Beyond. For 4 mana, it's an enchantment with the Void. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can put an Eldrazi Scion creature token onto the battlefield, which is of course pretty nice. This will stack pretty fast. You can sacrifice this card, From Beyond, to search your library for an Eldrazi card, reveal it, put it into your hand. So you use it a few turns to gain some Eldrazi Scions, and then you have enough mana ramp, and then you just sacrifice it to get your really big Eldrazi.
This card I really love. This is instant tier 1 for me. If I see this, it definitely pushes me into saying, okay, I'm going to try and play green, because once you put this down, if they can't remove it, it is going to get out of control so quickly, and it will guarantee that you're going to hit your bomb when you have enough mana to cast it. So that is super, super powerful. I love this card.
Yeah, of course, what we do have to say, it will only start doing work turn 5. You can also search an Eldrazi. If you get it late game, it's not that powerful. But I think I'll also put it into tier 1 because it's just really, really powerful to gain this much ramp pretty fast. Then we have the Woodland Wanderer. For 4 mana, it's a 2/2 Vigilance Trample, and that's Converge, so it gets +1/+1 count for each color of mana spent to cast this card. Well, mostly it will be a 4/4 Vigilance Trample, so on the offense and the defense, pretty relevant. 4/4 body is really relevant in the set. So, and if you have Converge, it will be a 5/5 for 4 mana. This is really, really nice.
What always has Converge when you play 3 cards.
So I put it into tier 2.
Yeah, I would also put it in tier 2. If I'm playing green, I'm definitely playing this. It won't make me play green by itself, but it might even make me think, yeah, I might splash a color, because it's a very nice, powerful card. Then we have Nissa's Renewal. For 6 mana, we can search our library for up to 3 basic land cards and put them into the battlefield tap. They shuffle our library and gain 7 life. It is a sorcery, so we can't do it instant speed, which is too bad. And the question is, at 6 mana, do you still want to be looking for another 3 lands? I would say, yes, you do want to be looking for another 3 lands, because it's a very mana intense set. You might have some mana sinks, you might have some really big Eldrazi you want to go into. The 7 life is basically as if you've taken an extra turn, because that is the average amount of damage that people can do to you on a turn basis. That's about average. So you basically buy yourself a turn, you got your mana ramp, and you have to lose this card for that. But if I'm playing green, I'm definitely including it. Not gonna play it. Not gonna play green just for it. So I would say tier 2.
Yeah, I also think you really want the lands, but of course your turn will be gone when you play this. You will only have played some lands that turn. Your opponent will, well, might get offensive with some creatures he can cast within his 6th turn. So it's good enough. So I also play it in tier 2. Then we have Oran Reef Hydra. For 6 mana, it's a 5/5 trample, and it has landfall. When a land enters, it gets a +1/+1 counter, but if the land will be a forest, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters. So if you're high on the forest and you have a forest turn 7, it will be a 7/7 trample, which is insane, and it will even become bigger. So it's a really, really big bomb, difficult to remove, tier 1.
Yeah, definitely tier 1. If they've got, obviously it does die to a lot of kinds of removal,
true, yeah.
but if they don't have it, there's no way they're going to be able to stop this thing. And the fact that it's got trample is just icing on the cake. Tier 1 also would make me want to play green. Those are the rares. So look at the mythics. Our first mythic is Undergrowth Champion for 3 mana. We get a 2/2 elemental, and whenever damage is dealt to this guy, you can remove a +1/+1 counter from it, and then you prevent that damage. However, how does it get +1/+1 counters? It also has landfall, and it states that whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a +1/+1 counter on this guy. So basically, this guy comes in for 3 mana. He's a 2/2. Lands come in, he becomes bigger, and you can block with it or attack with it, and should it die, you guys just remove a +1/+1 counter and kind of pseudo regenerate it, because it won't die.
Yeah, so it has 2 sides. It can grow really big, really fast, so it will be a really big bomb, or you can just block each turn if you are getting lands each turn and it doesn't die. You can just jump block something each turn. So it's really relevant. I would say tier 1.
Definitely tier 1. It makes me want to play green.
Then we have Green Warden of Murasa. For 6 mana it's a 5/4, and when it enters you may return a card from your graveyard to your hand, and when it dies you also may return a card from your graveyard to your hand. You do have to exile this one. So it will return 2 cards from your graveyard. You do need cards in your graveyard, of course, so that's conditional. But for 6 mana it's already a 5/4 body, which is already pretty nice. I would say tier 1, because the ability is just very strong. If they kill your biggest stuff, you can just get it back.
Exactly, and as we saw before already, toughness 4 is very relevant, and this one has added power. So yeah, it makes me want to play green, tier 1. Those are the mythics. Let's have a look at the conclusion. In conclusion, I think green is very strong. It is actually one of the more powerful colors. It has such a rich access to ramp, which is relevant because a lot of the colorless spells, which we're going to look at later, are extremely large Eldrazi, which require a lot of mana. A lot of the ramp that green has access to is in the form of tiny 1/1 Zion tokens, which you can sacrifice for the mana, but which you can also use to chump block and to attack with. So it gives you such great versatility. I think green has a great potential to be a good primary color in your sealed or draft deck.
I think so too. You can go wide with all the Eldrazi signs, or you can go large with just sacrificing them, getting something large. It has really reliable mana ramp, which is important, like David just said, and I think it's just one of the most reliable strategies in the set to use during a sealed or draft event.
Yeah.
It's just really strong. It has some really powerful rares too, so you really want one of those, of course, if you play green. But it also has really great commons and even a few uncommons. The uncommons are not that great,
no,
but still.
I think that's probably the weakest part, but the fact that it has so many good commons and good rares and mythics means that this is just always going to be a very solid, you're going to have enough cards, I think, to flesh out at least half of your deck if you're going 2 colors. So keep an eye out for some of those good green cards. That's all I have to say about green.
True, me too.
Alright, well now we're going to ask you to press that subscribe button, because if you press the subscribe button it allows us to make more videos, lets us know that we're doing a good job. Also, if you want to talk to us about the green cards and what you think about it, or how it was during your pre-release, or how it's going during your drafting, send us a message here in the comments below this video. We'll respond to it. Also, if you want to get social with us and you want to talk to us more personally, we can go directly to Facebook and Twitter. And actually, now you're going to have to wait for the jump, because after this transition there's going to be all the other videos for all the other colors and the set guide if you want to watch that. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'm David.
And I'm Ruud.
And this was Budget MTG Decks.